Oh, yeah. I probably should stop doing that because it could be annoying to some people who want to take this seriously. So, for those people who want this to be more serious, hello and welcome to an experiment in writing number 8. We're the antagonists. I've got so many of them queued up, I couldn't remember. For those paying attention, we're listening to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. If you haven't had a chance to see Jersey Boys, go see it. Really, really amazing. Well done. I believe Clint Eastwood directed that. Who knows? I should look that up before we close. Hang on a second. I'll pause the recording. Yes, that was produced and directed by Clint Eastwood, the film version. The play was not, because he doesn't know anything about plays. Anyway, we're the antagonists. One of the things that is required, in my opinion, for a good story is to have character growth, character development, character change, transformation. I'm not going to say transcendence. Other people have accused me of writing transcendent characters. Anyway, for a character to change and grow, to transform, to become, they need to be involved in something which elicits change. They need to be involved with something which causes them to need to change to address whatever they're involved with. This necessarily means whatever they're involved with is a challenge. Because let's face it, boring and dull people like myself do not become good story fodder because I'm boring and dull. Who the hell cares about me, right? However, if you have somebody who's in the midst of tremendous pressure, for lack of a better term, they need to somehow grow, change, or alter to meet that pressure, to address that pressure. They could fail. That's perfectly acceptable. They could succeed. Basically, whether they succeed or fail is kind of the difference between 1940 through 1970 Western cinema versus European cinema, Western being Hollywood cinema versus European cinema. European cinema was much more realistic back then to what happened in the world. See The Vanishing, the original, if you don't know what I mean. Anyway, and then the remake with Kiefer Sutherland, the US one. No offense to Kiefer Sutherland, like this. Anyway, growth and change. What causes growth and change? Some kind of challenge, which they'll either succeed and overcome or they will fail at. Okay, in either case, that's a transformation. So one of the things that can cause transformation, cause people to need to change, is if they have a worthy antagonist. There's the protagonist, the person that the audience, the reader goes, yeah, I want to be on their side. And the antagonist, the person, the audience or reader goes, I don't like him. So you have a good, solid protagonist you've created. Now you need a worthy antagonist. Now we're going to go back to Empty Sky. I told you we'd get back to it. In the original version, the original published version of Empty Sky, the antagonist was a fellow by the name of Earl Pangiosi. Okay. Now, Earl, the original version of Earl Pangiosi, the original chapter of Earl Pangiosi was fairly short. And the reason it was short was because it was about 14, 15 pages. The reason it was short was because this is back in 2016 when this version got published, the one that I was as good as I could do at the time, but I knew it needed work, could have been better. The Earl Pangiosi I created in that time period was basically evil, pure evil, no redeeming qualities, no real substance, no real substrate to the character. More than two-dimensional, not quite three. Okay. So that was that was 2016. Now the new version of Empty Sky, you should all go get copies. The new version of Empty Sky, Earl Pangiosi is the chapter, I should say, introducing Earl Pangiosi is about 45 pages, about 35 pages. I'm sorry, math's my strong point. 35 pages. And the reason it's that much longer is because I really go into what made Earl Pangiosi into Earl Pangiosi. What happened during his life that caused him to be the evil prick bastard he is in the story? He needs to be that evil prick bastard in the story. But my opinion, feel free to disagree, nobody is born being an asshole. They may have certain tendencies, right? But nobody is born being evil. So what caused him to go that route? And that's what I did. In the rewrite, I emphasized and explored Earl Pangiosi, childhood through the point in time where he's in the story, in the time of the story, what happened through his life that caused him to become the person he became. Great. A worthy opponent, a worthy antagonist. Okay? Very good. Now, let's go to the Inheritors. Okay? The antagonist in the Inheritors, well, for one thing, there's no single antagonist. How about that? There's a bunch of antagonists. There is one primary protagonist and a couple of secondary protagonists. I don't want to give too much away, but the main protagonist is Tommy Ayers, main character of the story, basically. A secondary protagonist is his brother, Roland Ayers. There are other minor protagonists. I put them in as they're required. However, Tommy is constantly evolving through the story. He is changing big time. So we needed to create an antagonist that could keep pace with Tommy's changes. Okay. What I did was I created Seth, the character Seth. And again, as I did with Earl Pangiosi, the Inheritors was written after Empty Sky. What I did with Seth, much as I did with Earl Pangiosi, I gave background. What caused him to be the way he is? How come he's the evil bastard he is? And it turns out, to be honest with you, Seth's not evil. He's a product of his environment, probably the best way to say it. Well, for that matter, Earl Pangiosi is as well. But Seth has compassion on things. He has feelings. He has emotions. He cares. Earl doesn't, really. Now, here, I remember I said that Seth had to change. Seth does change, but the rate of change between Tommy's growth and Seth's growth is way different, okay? Very, very different. So that Seth is not able to keep pace with Tommy, but he keeps on showing up to challenge Tommy, keeps on showing up to antagonize him, to thwart his plans. So there we go. We have a worthy antagonist for Tommy in the Inheritors. In the Augmented Man, if I told you who the antagonist is, the primary antagonist, I'd be giving you a spoiler, and I'm not going to do that. However, there are actually several antagonists. There's two primary protagonists, several antagonists. And the reason I did that was I wanted the antagonists to go back and forth between the primary and secondary protagonists. I wanted there to be that weaving back and forth. Recognize that in the augmented man, the principal character, the main character, main protagonist, is essentially a massively monsterized human being, Nick Trailer. He's modified almost to the point of not being recognizable as a human being, as a man. And he's monstrous. He's 700. He's about 7.5 feet tall. He's about 650, 700 pounds. So whoever is his principal antagonist physically has to be threatening to somebody that size. However, people are not just their physical bodies, they're their emotional body, their spiritual body, their psychological body. So, okay, you have this massive physical threat. What's threatening his other bodies? Well, his emotional and spiritual axis, for those who know something about psychology, that is threatened by love, okay? Nick wants to be in love. He wants to love someone. But he's never known what love is. He's never experienced love in his life. So that being loved or expressing love is a threat to other bodies. There is an intellectual challenge, if you will. So he has all of his cells, all of the pieces that make us up are challenged in different ways. And again, I weave that, best I hope I do, I weave it all together so that the end is satisfying. I won't go into other books because this is probably running very long as it is. But I hope you get the idea. And if you don't get the idea, leave a comment. Let me know. Because I'm learning to enjoy these. I hope you are too. Thank you. Take care. He searches for the shut up.